It's Ebro in the morning. Laura Styles and Rosenberg. Lauren Rosenberg is on assignment right now. We have Maurice Mitchell, who is the head of the Working Families Party. Am I saying your job title correctly?
That's correct. Head is fine. National director is the official
National
title.
Director of the Working Families Party. Now, I always call the Working Families Party the Working People's Party just because it has a little pop to it. You know what I mean? The WPP. But it's technically the Working Families Party, which
Correct.
when I see on a ballot, I generally vote for. Right, like
Yeah.
even if it's like, yo, wait, what is going on? And then when you're in there voting and you get the little blurb and you get to read about it, anything for working families, I am in favor of. But where does the Working Families Party plug into the political system for people who don't know? What is the alignment and how does it work?
Well, that's a great question, Ebro. And again, it's a pleasure and honor to be with you. And I know that your program is nationwide and worldwide, but Hot 97 is grounded in New York. And
Yeah,
so
love.
for New York voters, I'd be remiss to talk about the fact that in New York, also in Connecticut, but in New York, when you go to vote, you could vote row D on the Working Families Party line. Why is that important? Okay, well, in New York, when you vote row D, you could vote. We have endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, when you vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on the Working Families line, what you're saying is, I reject the far right, I reject MAGA, but I vote on my principles, which means if I have a qualm with the Democrats around Gaza and killing innocent children, if I have a problem with the Democrats around their immigration policy, if I want to vote for a working families agenda, and I believe that the money that they're spending on bombs should be spent on health care, mental health care, on more resources for education. When you vote on the Working Families Party line, that's what you're voting for. You're saying, yes, we agree that the far right is problematic, but we also want the Democrats
To be
to
held
stand up
accountable for
to
certain things.
exactly. And we want the entire political establishment to stand up for Working Families Party, Working Families values. So the Working Families Party line in New York allows you to do that. So anybody that cares about the interest of everyday workers, which is many of the people who are listening right now, and you're in New York, vote on row D because you're able to vote your values. You don't just get lost in the sauce.
So and it's important. I want to highlight for anybody watching this conversation. Understand when you vote in this way, what Maurice is saying is that you are now pushing the candidate to pay attention to the policies of the Working Families Party and implement those policies, asks, and stances into their agenda, correct?
That is correct. And what I like to say is that voting is not the prize, governance is the prize,
Okay,
right?
I love this.
So we vote so that we vote on November 5th. So November 6th, we could focus on our agenda. The Working Families Party, we're not folks who are just around maybe weeks before the election and we try to get people to vote. We're around 365 days a year. Why is that important? Because we have an agenda. We care about particular issues, and we want to make sure that from the top of the ticket all the way down, that those politicians are held accountable to those issues, which is why voting as a group is so critical. This is crazy season right now because we're, only a few weeks away from election day. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of disinformation about your individual power as a voter, what voting is for, right? It's not simply about election day. It's about certainly voting for the people that you think you can move and you could push the best. And then after election day, pushing them, making demands on them. And that's what the Working Families Party is about. Outside of New York, we are in 20 states and we endorse close to 1,000 people up and down the ballot. We don't just focus on presidential candidates. We focus on city council. We focus on mayors. We focus on state legislature. Why? Because we actually care about policy and getting things done for everyday working people. And so if you're listening and you're curious about how to have the biggest impact, you do it as a group, right? Which is why you join organizations like the Working Families Party, and why we go in as a group and vote as a group and then make demands as a group, which is how you get a $15 minimum wage, which is how you get paid family leave. And a lot of these ideas that we helped to make mainstream, right? People people might know of Tish James.
That's right.
Right? Tish James is the Attorney General of New York. What people might not know is that she started as an independent Working Families Party candidate for city council. Right? People might know of Jumaane Williams, the public advocate, especially recently with a lot of talk about the mayor and what would happen if the mayor left. Well, Jumaane also started as an independent Working Families Party candidate for city council. And we have candidates, for example, Kendra Brooks and Nicholas O'Rourke, sitting in Philadelphia City Council, working hand in glove with labor unions, the grassroots organizations, in order to pass a Working Families Party agenda in that city. We have candidates all throughout the country, up and down the ballot. So when political parties or political movements ask for your vote and ask for your time, you should be curious about what are they doing, not just at the top of the ticket, which we think is important, but also what are they doing with the lower down the ballot races, and also what are they doing after and before election day.
And also, and I also talk about on the program often, what are they doing in your community, in your local community? Like you said, city council, these things matter and have huge impact. Huge impact. I know there's a lot of noise about the election on the federal level. There's a lot of money spent. There's big resources, big talk, and it is important. But the way it affects you in your life, in your state, in your county, in your city, in your community, you have to be able to pay attention to that. Now, so on a more specific Working Families Party conversation, Kamala has rolled out the Black Man Plan.
All right. Yep. Read it.
This is something that many people, many voting blocks. I was told that the Working Families Party was in and around these conversations. I'm not quite sure if that was fact, but there's been several black male organizations that have had meetings with Kamala over the months and weeks leading up to this moment. And now we are just a couple of weeks away. And Kamala says, yes, I have a plan that is specifically for black men in entrepreneurialism, in small business loans, specifically mental health, diabetes, sickle cell, as well as protections around digital investments and crypto and things like that, and even the new revenue stream in the new economy around the legalization of cannabis. What do you have to say about this plan, Maurice?
Well, there's a lot I could say, but number one, whatever your politics, whatever position you might have, this is historic, because this is the first time, I think, in history that a major presidential candidate has offered a policy plank specifically targeting black men and offering concrete, serious policy proposals that we could wrestle with as black men.
Now, right? For viewers, what's important, and I always focus on this, these are proposals. These are ideas. These are plans. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, because there's other work that needs to be done. So a lot of times policies and plans get big headlines. That's and correct. People who are not quite knowledgeable about the process assume, well, they said they was going to do X, Y, Z, and it never happened. They're a liar, right? And jump all the way to that, not understanding the process. So there's still work to be done here. But the fact that anyone that is running for president of the United States, a serious candidate running for president of the United States, and could win, has put a policy up front specifically for black men, I don't think this has ever happened in history.
No, I don't think so. And why I think that's important is that, and we've endorsed VP Harris, and this suggests that VP Harris is listening and does not take our vote for granted and seeks to earn our vote, right? And look, every community has a set of issues and an agenda. I think it's only right that the folks who want our vote earn our vote by laying out concretely the tangible policies that relate to our community. And she's done it here with this plan. And I'm very pleased that she's leaning in and taking seriously the specific concerns of black men, and that it isn't a surface plan. It deals with the economic agenda. It deals with the public health crisis that black men are facing. I mean, even in the hip hop community, how many, just in recent years, how many of our champions in hip hop have we lost way
Yep.
too soon. You know, Fat Man Scoop recently.
That's right.
You know,
Mississippi.
DMX, my
DMX.
my my cousin, MF Doom,
Yeah.
right? Like so many black men specifically are dying in their late 40s and their 50s, way too soon. And so to
We just
focus
lost.
on
We don't know why, but we just lost Brownsville Cop too, from
correct
Brownsville. So
now,
we
now
don't even know why.
and that was I think yesterday.
Yep.
That was yesterday or the day before. So the focus on particular details about black male longevity and actually improving our quality of life, improving our economic lives. I always lean into the black economic agenda. If you're not talking about power, economic power, political power, healthcare, I don't know what you're talking about. So the fact that she laid all those things out, we need to take that seriously. And again, I want us to look at the other side too. I want us to actually take seriously what's coming out of Trump's mouth, what his agenda is. Again, Trump has said very recently that he wants to instate the death penalty for quote unquote drug dealers. And look, if you're a black man and you hear a 80-year-old conservative white man talk about drug dealers, like we know who they're talking about.
Or
Like
when he's talking about stop and frisk, or he's talking about complete
oh,
immunity. He's talking about immunity for police officers and their
okay.
actions.
Nationalized
But
qualified
Maurice,
immunity.
how dare you say this? When you heard him just yesterday, I love black men. I love them. I love them. They're great. I
I
love them.
mean,
We're through the roof with black men.
and then and if that's true, then he has to show and prove, right? There's like political pandering. So that's what we call pandering, right? Pandering is saying things like "I love you guys," is mainly maybe bringing your black supporters around you, having those people with the signs blacks for Trump. That is pandering. What we want from political leadership of any party is concrete policy so that we could evaluate how their policy agenda would impact our lives. But he's clear about some concretes, right? Like you said before, nationalizing stop and frisk. Let's just think about what that would mean. Nationalizing qualified immunity, which provides immunity for police officers that commit crimes against us and our people.
Well, and
Right?
also
This is
too,
what he's
people
saying.
people don't understand the history, especially when it comes to these ideas put forward by the federal government that had unintended consequences, specifically for black men. When you go back and look at three strikes, right, or you look at
Right.
some of these policies that were pushed forward by black clergy and black politicians, thinking it was something that could be put in the hands of the federal government and enacted at the state level and then brought down to local municipalities. But the racist institutions of America will exacerbate already issues in the fabric of us as society, right? And so that
Absolutely.
behavior and that racist behavior will now be left in the hands of local municipalities that are already racist and to execute these policies. And so if you think it's a good idea to say something like that on a national level, but have no idea of how it's going to affect people in Jackson, Mississippi, or you know what I mean, in
Yeah.
rural parts of America who don't fit don't fit the status quo in their appearance.
Well, what I was going to say, Ebro, is that we do have an inkling. We do have an idea about what that would look like,
No,
right?
we do, but
Yep.
many clearly have forgotten.
Absolutely. And I want people, what I want people to do is to take a step back and not focus too much on personalities, right? It's not politics and elections are about the future and they're about agendas. They're not simply about people. And if we're just thinking about, oh, Kamala Harris as a black woman, Donald Trump as a nearly 80 white man, that those things are true and their biographies have some impact on things and who they are and their character matters. But what I often look at is what the agendas are. And Project 2025 is Trump's agenda. MAGA is his movement. His candidacy is simply a vehicle to advance that agenda, right? And look, I think most people who are listening understand that when you elect a president, you don't just elect him. There's like hundreds of people that day one, minute one are around the president, his people, his entourage, his advisors. They go in day one, minute one with an agenda. And we need to evaluate these agendas to understand how, as working class people, it would impact our lives, and listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're writing. I invite anybody, if you have Google Project 2025 PDF, and you could look at this 922 page document that lays out what they want to do. Now, some people say, oh, Trump says he hasn't read Project 2025. I'm pretty sure that's true. That's the
because
point.
he admitted that he doesn't read.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He didn't read the presidential briefings when he was president. So I'm not surprised.
Never forget, he kept Mein Kampf next to his bed, according to one of his wives. So
look,
he's reading
and here's the point. Agendas like Project 2025 are designed so that the president doesn't need to know policy details. They could just execute, right? And it's a scary manual. Like within 5 pages, they're talking about all types of really shocking things that get to the core of them wanting to be overly involved in everybody's lives. From page 5, talking about outlawing porn. And page 5 also says that they want to put educators and librarians in jail, in prison. They use the word woke 23 times, I think, in the document. And we know, I think most people who are listening understand when conservatives on the far right of a certain culture say woke, we know that that's code for us, right? And they talk about outlawing, quote unquote, woke education, which has essentially meant outlawing Black education, Black history, teaching our history. This should be alarming to anybody. And this is what they're saying and writing. People should not believe me. I don't want anybody to believe me. I want people to do their own research. Google these things. Listen to what Trump is saying. Listen to what they're writing and believe them when they say it. And then on the flip side, read Kamala Harris's policy proposals for Black men. Read Kamala Harris's policy proposals for working class people. The fact that she wants to invest in everyday people so that they could have a $50,000 tax credit to start small businesses, that there could be a $6,000 child tax credit, that there could be a credit for new homeowners. These policies are policies designed for everyday people. On the flip side, the only thing that's clear about Donald Trump's economic agenda is that he wants tax cuts for very, very, very wealthy people and corporations. That's the main thing he did when he was in office last time. Tax cuts for wealthy people and corporations, and January 6th, the insurrection. And so,
well, and also mass deportations.
Oh,
and he's been beating that drum a lot.
I want people to
and guess what? It won't be blonde-haired, blue-eyed people from France and the Nordics and Canada being swept up in those mass deportations.
Canadians, and I want people to think about this because this is on his website. He talks about it often. They talked about it at the RNC. Mass deportation of millions of people. And you might be sitting here and you might say, like, well, I'm not an undocumented immigrant, so this is not my problem. The reality is that's 12, maybe 13 million people who are all throughout our communities, and they're talking about using the National Guard, potentially using the military in order to massively round up all of these people from our communities. That will impact you. Most of these families are mixed status families. What does that mean? Well, you might have a father who's an undocumented immigrant. You might have a mother who's a naturalized citizen, and you might have, children who are born in the United States. What they're saying is that they want to bust into that house, take all those people away, whisk them away, put them into detention centers, and potentially commit all types of human rights violations, and then sift through these people to decide who's in and who's out. If that actually happens, think about what it would do for our communities, the fabric of our communities. It will become a police state. It will become a militarized police state. This is something that they say they want to execute immediately. And so we need to take them at their words when they say they essentially want to make our country into some sort of authoritarian, militarized police state. In fact, a few days ago, Trump said that he wanted to use the military against his political opponents, and he wanted to deal with his political opponents by using the military. He's saying out loud what normally they only say behind closed doors.
Well, not only that, but it also are just things that are considered the incorrect, inappropriate way to conduct business in that office, which is why people who are his former staff members, leaders of the military, and other people like that who are saying this guy cannot be allowed in that office again.
Yeah, and again,
by the way, he also has 34 felonies.
Yeah, and look, this is, and I want everybody who might be doubtful of anything I'm saying or anything that you're suggesting, simply to do the research on their own and to Google any of these things. I don't want anybody to leave this conversation and to just take my word for it, right? Please fact check. Mm-hmm. Fact check me. Google Project 2025. Google these statements. And I just want people to believe the things that are coming out of these candidates' mouths, right? And again, it's bigger than just Trump and just Harris. It is the agendas and the movements that they represent. And look, I'm building an independent third party from the ground up that focuses on working people. So I'm not somebody that just gets on the Democratic Party bandwagon. We at the Working Families Party, we did not surface our own candidate at the top of the ticket because it was so clear to us what a threat to our democracy, to the issues of everyday working people Trump would be. And the fact that in the binary Trump versus Harris fight, and it is either going to be Trump or Harris,
it's Kamala Walls.
Oh, look,
it's Kamala Walls, man.
It's undeniable that on the other side of the election, our job is to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but then we have a lot of work afterwards, which is the organizing and the agenda setting and the pushing that we have to do. If we just elect them and then go to sleep,
you still got to vote at the midterms. You got to vote on a local level. There's a lot. Listen, this is why, voter turnout outside of the federal elections is too low, in my opinion. You have mayoral races, city council races, sheriff races, judge races, prosecutor races, attorney general races. There's so many different political things that people have to pay attention to. It is not easy. No one is saying it's easy to pay attention to all the layers that you need to activate on. But if you want to follow something great, the Working Families Party is a great thing to tune into. Maurice Mitchell here from the Working Families Party. You are the national director, correct?
Correct, Ebro. Correct. And Ebro, what you just said is really important because, look, everybody can't be like myself and spend 24/7 on politics and power building, but you don't have to. You could join organizations, right? Join the Working Families Party so that we could provide a venue for you to make sense of a lot of the noise. I know people are constantly scrolling, and it's hard to know what's factual, what's not factual, what's misinformation, what's disinformation. Join a political organization that aligns with your values. So number one, you could parse through the noise to understand clearly what's going on and to make meaning in a moment where there's just way too much misinformation out in the atmosphere.
There's noise.
Right? And then the second thing, and it's misinformation, disinformation, and sometimes just flat out lies, right? But number two, the other thing that you get with a political organization is that with your precious time, we could help you do something meaningful with your precious time, where you could knock on doors and have conversations with people in your community to help them turn out and vote. You could come up with a voter plan and get other people that so people that you're close to vote as well. You could maybe from the comfort of your own home, text and call people in swing states. We make it easy for everyday people with the 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour here to get involved and to, more importantly, understand what their involvement means. I think it's so important that we have an educated populace. And unfortunately, the other side, the right wing, wants to take away resources from education. And I believe that one of the reasons they want to do that is so that we have a populace that could believe a lot of the misinformation. And one of the ways that at Working Families Party, we contribute to making sure that we have an educated working class populace is by making sure that we provide the details, the facts, the information, so that you could go into the ballot box and make an educated decision, so that you know the difference between Project 2025 and Kamala Harris's positions. And that you don't just know that Project 2025 is bad, that you know specifically that, for example, they want to take away overtime pay, right? That specifically, for example, they want to abolish Head Start. How many people know how Head Start has helped so many families provide childcare and education for
early
young
childhood
people that need it?
financial support for early childhood education. They want to get rid of the Environmental Protection Agency. They want to fire people who work for the government at the federal level, which I think is about 200,000 people, if their political alignments don't align with Donald Trump. They want to fire
Correct.
them, which, by the
Correct.
way, is a giant lawsuit waiting to happen and likely just a waste of taxpayer dollars and money, and basically making the government dysfunctional, more so than it already is.
Minute one, day one. Minute one, day one, they want a universal nationwide abortion ban. And you might be thinking, well, how can they achieve that without Congress? Well, they've come up with a way to do that. I want people to Google the Comstock Act. They want to use that law. It's a 1800s law in order to prohibit abortion, right? And to effectively outlaw abortion, day one, minute one. And you're right, Ebro. They want to take the federal government, fire people in the thousands, and replace them with many of the people that you see at Trump rallies, right? People who are Trump.
You don't. So, Maurice, you're telling me you don't want Elon Musk to be the director of the cost cutting, the new office called cost cutting that Trump was talking about the other day? You telling me that's not a good idea?
Well, I mean, you saw what a great job he did with Twitter, right? Like, I mean, the value of Twitter has plummeted. Its functionality is completely in disarray, and we can expect Elon taking a hatchet to the federal government being akin to what he's done to that platform, right? And I think what's important here is, look, Trump's his whole shtick is chaos, and we need steady hands in governance, right? We need responsible people who are serious people in governance. You don't have that with Trump, right? I mean, listen to what he said.
Like you said a little bit ago, Maurice, let people go and do their own research, right? Go out here and do your own research, because there are people who want to do the work, and then there are people who just want sound bites and they're going to make their decisions. But I love that, Maurice, you're encouraging people to go and actually do the research, push back against the Project 2025, which is the Pushback Project 2025 initiative. You guys can look that up. You can look up the Working Families Party. Maurice Mitchell is the national director for the Working Families Party, or as I like to incorrectly call it, the Working People Party. You know what I'm saying? Because who doesn't want to support working people?
Yeah, listen, and I'm glad you mentioned the pushback, right? Because we believe that all of our people, I don't care how you identify, if you identify as conservative or progressive or liberal or moderate or independent, if you identify as a Republican or Democrat or Working Families Party, that you have the information. And so we started a project called The Pushback. And we've been reaching people in our culture, people in hip hop, people who are artists and actors, musicians, other folks, to have conversations so that they have the information that they need, so that they could share with the people that are closest to them, share with their audiences the truth. And look, if you are voting based on the truth and you don't vote in our direction, I'm very comfortable with that. But if you're voting based on misinformation and disinformation and lies, I am not comfortable with that. And the pushback is designed to tell the truth, for example, about Project 2025, right? Project 2025 is real. The Heritage Foundation has been in existence for decades. The Heritage Foundation is a major think tank. It's not a side project, it's a major think tank that's at the center of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Project 2025 was authored by more than 100 people and is sponsored by more than 100 mainstream conservative and Republican organizations. It's been worked on for more than a year. They've put more than $20 million into it. And as much as people don't want to believe that Donald Trump has anything to do with it, at least
His name's
140
mentioned
of the
hundreds of
closest
times
people.
in the document.
Oh, and the actual people that have been in and around Donald Trump are the main authors.
Yeah, they
right?
used to work
They,
for him. And he speaks at their gatherings, man. That's all. Listen, bro, it's all on the internet for people to find if they're willing to do the research. But by the way, if you're not willing to do the research, Maurice, and there are people who just want to cause chaos. Remember a few years ago, people walked into the ballot box and they voted for the gorilla that got shot. Harambe,
Indeed.
you remember that whole debacle. So there's definitely people out here who just want to cause chaos. Maurice, listen, we have to focus on individuals who want to go to the ballot box with some real intent, some real being intentional. We have to focus on people who do want to do the work, and we could get the word out there in many ways. Shout to Killer Mike, Taraji, 2 Chainz, Mano, YG, and many others who have coalitioned up to push back against Project 2025 and also help galvanize voters in the hip-hop community. Jeezy, Tiana Taylor, Fab. There's a lot of people moving to do the right thing. Big up to them. Maurice, thank you for your time today on the program, man. Appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you, brother. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
Absolutely. Look up Working Families Party. Follow them on Instagram or join. Get all the details you can. Disseminate it to your community and your family. Maurice Mitchell, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.